in principle, the English versions of nearly everything that we quote from. Some of them are on the web. You'd be surprised how much the stuff that is out there on the web. A few days ago, I was laboriously copying an important source. Is actually in it from a book in English that I had written in the 1600s, and I was spending hours on it, looking at it. And I'm not that young. I have to refresh my memory every now and again. So I have to look on this. Suddenly it occurred to me, like they say, they have a slogan, yeah, speak slowly, I'm a natural blonde, speak slowly. So I have the same problem. I'm a natural blonde, or I was once a natural blonde, and sometimes it takes me a while to catch on. When I catch on, I usually catch on and catch up, but not always. Anyway, this time, I've been doing all this work, suddenly it could have been, maybe it's on the internet. And there it was, the whole book was up there with the thing, and I just had to do a cut and paste, and all the trouble that I'd gone to, I could have saved myself from if I had the common sense to check it up previously. So anyway, if you you say of the English versions of the books, there are English versions of most of the works we quote from, somewhere or other. Some of them are on the web, others you have to purchase, or you could from your local library, have library services and so on if it's really important. Also, you could get in touch with me. I might be able to help you because I've also had this experience in the past. And all of it, everything we say is verifiable. Okay? It doesn't mean we can't make mistakes, but it is verifiable. What?
Was there a specific book that he wanted?
Do you have anything specific? Mark, if you have anything specific, send me an email.
Sure.
Okay. Kiki.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
You have anything to say?
I'm just waiting for wisdom.
Okay.
Coming from you.
Like all of us. Okay. Sylvia, can you make an introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sylvia. I'm Canadian, but living in Michigan. Naturalized citizen here too. And I'm looking forward to the coming redemption and regathering, and glad to be here.
Okay. Okay, David.
Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself again.
Yes, I live in the most, incidentally, the most Jewish town in Britain. I want you to know that.
Okay.
It's called Radlett, just outside London.
What's it called?
Radlett, R-A-D-L-E-T-T. It is statistically the most Jewish place in Britain.
Okay.
So
Are you Jewish, David?
No, I'm not. But I'm not actually. No, but I'm interested. In fact, I'm. I respect the Sabbath, the Shabbat. I respect that. So on. I grew up in a family where this was understood. The tribes, the Shabbat, it was understood, which got me into trouble at school because I once had to do an essay when I was about 13, I think, on the 12 tribes or something, and I wrote down what I'd learned at home. And they gave me a score of 2 out of 50 because it was completely alien to what was generally being taught. Well, my father was Scottish, by the way, if that's relevant. So I'm very interested in what you're doing. I don't know how you got into all this. Yeah, it's fascinating. And I find this of great interest. I believe it. And we're all waiting eventually for the end when God intervenes, of course.
Okay. Okay, so I'll tell you how I got into it, more or less. First of all, my father spoke of it at home. His mother had done research on it in Wales. Independent research. Yeah, she'd done independent research on the subject, but he didn't know that, he wasn't into it very much, but he told me about it. And after that, I found other literature from other places. This is as an adolescent, and I became interested in it. Then I more or less forgot about it, and I more or less forgot about it. Then I came to Israel. I was born Jewish, and I came to Israel, and I went to yeshiva. I learned in the yeshiva, I kept on coming across sources that indicated there might be something to the idea. I was also always interested in history, and I came across historical sources or also items on the news. But kept on disturbing me, kept on arousing my interest in it, that maybe there's some ancestral connection between the peoples in the West and the Jewish people. So eventually, to satisfy my own curiosity, one because my own need to know, I spent a lot of time in the local libraries and library in Jerusalem and here and there researching it, and I came to and I found that I was investing so much time in them that even if I come to the conclusion that it was not correct, I would write a book about it as to why it is not correct and what the belief is and so on. So I began to put together material, research material, and then I myself became more and more convinced of it, and eventually we published books, and we started up Brit-Am in Israel. So that is, in a nutshell, is how we got here. John Thornton, how are you?
I'm very well, Yair, and yourself.
Okay. I gave a plug to your article on my website. Did you see it?
Sorry, would you repeat that?
You wrote an article once.
Yes, I think I did.
And the linguistics.
It was probably.
No, it was okay. I upgraded it. I upgraded the appearance, not the content. I upgraded the appearance of the article, and I gave a plug. It's on my website. I gave a plug to it in our news shoot.
I'll have to go back and check that out. So it was probably several years ago.
Okay, very good. Okay, very nice.
I had a bit of instability in my circuit, sorry, but I got back in.
Okay. You're from Canada, Toronto, Canada, right, Nelson?
That's correct.
Nelson is an old supporter of Brit-Am from we go back decades, right, Nelson? A long time. When I published my first book or my second book, Nelson got in touch with me.
Yeah.
And on and on, we remained in touch here and there ever since. Yeah, and you want to say something, Nelson?
I just say hi to everybody. It's a pleasure being here. Basically, I got in touch with I first started reading about the tribes in '79. Someone gave me a copy of the book United States and Britain in Prophecy by Herbert W. Armstrong. And that led me to the book by Reverend Allen, Judah's Scepter, Joseph's Birthright. And that led me to Yair Davidiy's books. And I've been quite a student of his ever since, and just tremendously a great admirer of Yair's academia. So it's a pleasure being here. I look forward to meet you guys and hear more stories.
Okay. So we believe the Lost in Tribes. We believe the Lost in Tribes are amongst Western nations, amongst Western peoples, and all of you are aware of this, and you know it. And we rely upon biblical sources. We rely upon biblical sources, and we supplement these with rabbinical sources, with history, archaeology, linguistics, mythology, any field of study that has something pertinent in it. We obtain supportive evidence from it. That our main source, we could say our main source is the Bible, and we prove it. We prove over the years. We proved it. We have a lot of biblical evidence. We borrow it from we take the evidence from what other people have written. We also find a lot of our own, or through our own researchers. We put it all together, and we keep on posting it out and upgrading it and improving it. And we have proven it. And so we show that Lost in Tribes amongst Western nations, and also we brought evidence in the course of time that the Lost in Tribes are to be found in America. That was in our second book, Ephraim, and also in our book, Joseph, we spoke of this. We have biblical indications of Lost in Tribes in our days are to be concentrated in the USA, in America. And we showed that from different sources that a good portion of the population of America do descend from Lost in Tribes. First of all, they came, a lot of them, a majority of them, especially the early settlers who created the country, gave its formative import, came from areas in Europe where we already had proof that Lost in Tribes were there. There's one indication. That's already an indication. In addition to that, there was biblical evidence that the Russian troops would be in the North Country, would be in the West, would be over there in the Isles of the Sea, and other indications that could indicate America. Also, we found that the American was dominated by the troops of Joseph, Ephraim, and Menasseh, and we saw indications that America could be especially have the tribe of Menasseh especially prominent amongst it, the very name Menasseh. In Hebrew, as we showed, the very name Menasseh means responsible representation, which is one of the formative inputs, ideologies that America has. Menasseh means responsible representation in Hebrew, according to Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who's a great authority. He says something, it receives attention. Also, America, we had showed evidence that the very name America is derived from Americo Vespucci, a navigator shortly after the time of Columbus. Americo Vespucci was probably the first one to prove, or at least to confirm the indications that the continent of America was a separate entity, it wasn't part of Asia, and he was important, and somehow either because of him, America received his name, and we showed that Americo Vespucci apparently received his name Americo, or sometimes written as Americo, and that his name became America, and that this name America was a form of the name Mechir or Ha-Mechiri that was used amongst the Jews, and the source of the name is found in the Bible. It means Mechir was the name of Mechir, the son of Menasseh, firstborn son of Menasseh, and Ha-Mechiri means the sons of Mechir. And in the Middle Ages, there was someone, there's an important Jewish person, actually, and not only Jewish, he was also important amongst the Gentiles, became a hero amongst them. He's also a saint. They made him a saint, even though he was a Jewish in southern Italy, and so on. He was an important hero in the local area. And his Hebrew's name was Mechir, or Ha-Mechiri. The Jews, local Jews, called him Ha-Mechiri. It's like a diminutive, even though Ha-Mechiri literally in Hebrew means the sons of Mechir. They used it as a Ha-Mechiri, as a nickname for someone being the little Mechir, or like a pet name. And this name was transmuted into Latin, local Latin, and Ha-Mechiri, even in Hebrew, it's difficult to pronounce from someone from me. Someone who's born in the Western nations, in the Western area. So it's transmuted into Mechir, America. And because of that, the name became popular in the area, and apparently Americo Vespucci picked it up, and he passed the name on to the continent. And America, even though America originally meant both North and South America in common parlance, in the vernacular, the name America usually is applied to the USA. We say someone's American, he's from America, we mean he's from the USA. So the USA can indirectly be said to be named after Mechir, the firstborn son of Menasseh. So that too was an indication. We have a lot of indications. And then we had this book, we came across this book, Rabbi Menasseh ben Yisrael. Actually, we had it for years, but we never actually looked at it in depth until a few days ago. And Rabbi Menasseh ben Yisrael was an important rabbi. And he was, Rabbi Menasseh ben Yisrael was an important rabbi. He was born on the island of Madeira, off the coast of Africa, which belonged to Portugal, still does belong to Portugal. His family had come from Spain. He was of Marano ancestry called Anusim. That means his ancestors a few generations back had been Jews, had been practicing Jews, and then the Jews had been expelled from Spain. And anyone Jew who remained behind, or anyone Jew who had converted to Christianity and went back to observing Jewish customs, could be put to death by the Inquisition. So his family kept the matter quiet, but they did keep some of the Jewish customs. And they went to Madeira because the rule of the Inquisition was less stringent in that region, but it was still dangerous. So from there they moved to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. In that time, Amsterdam had previously been subject to Spain, but after that period it was already independent. And they allowed freedom of worship, and they allowed Jews to be openly Jewish. So his family moved there, and he himself was there, and he learned a lot. He was very studious. He became a rabbi. He became an author, also a printer. He established the first Hebrew printing press in the Netherlands. He married a descendant of Rabbi Isaac Abarbanel, and in 1490s, a very important Jewish sage. We also quote him. He has a lot to say that is of relevance to us, and he was descended from King David. So the wife of Menasseh was one of the descendants of King David, and Menasseh himself was quite proud of this, proud that he was somehow either connected to King David, and that the future Messiah would also come from King David. And he was also into mysticism, Jewish mysticism, and Jewish learning at that time. And there was a really frenetic search for the Messiah, to bring on the Messiah, to bring forward the Messianic age amongst the Jews, not only amongst the Jews, also amongst the Protestants in the Netherlands and in England. And in England, the Puritans had fought a war against the Cavaliers, against the Stuart dynasty, and they won. They took over England and they decapitated Charles I, the King of England, and Oliver Cromwell became the de facto ruler of England. And as we said, in England, there were a lot of Puritans who were interested in the Messiah, interested in Judaism. Some of them were pro-Jewish. Some of them believed that the Lost End tribes, that they were descendants of the Lost End tribes. Some of them, others believed that they should try and convert the Jews in order to bring forward the Messianic age, to convert them to Christianity. Others didn't want to convert them, just leave them as and help them, and even some of them wanted to re-establish the Jews in the Holy Land. They were the first Zionists, one could say, in a sense. And so all these different trends of thought were coming together and creating a certain pressure. And this was what was going on also at that time in the Ukraine. The Ukraine is now in the news. There were what are known as the Khmelnytsky massacres. In the Ukraine was ruled by Poland and Lithuania. Poland and Lithuania were together in one country. They one republic joined together, and they also had. And they were Catholics, and they ruled over the Cossacks. The Cossacks were Ukrainian and Polish peasants who rebelled and set up their own entity, and they rebelled against the Polish and Lithuanians, and they were joined by the Ukrainian peasants. And in the course of their war against the Poles and Lithuanians, they wiped out a lot of Jews. They killed a lot of Jews. They killed Jews, and they did this in a very horrible way. They tortured Jews, they raped them, they dispossessed them, they sold them into slavery to the Turks. And the historian Yair the Great estimates that up to 250,000 Jews were killed. Others say even more, perhaps numbers such as 600,000 have been given. It's not known, and it was a serious calamity. It's considered possibly the worst calamity that ever happened to the Jewish people until the Holocaust. And not many people are aware of this, but at that time, it was known. It was in the news. And there were Jews coming to the West, coming to the Netherlands, and publicizing this, and asking for help, asking to help the refugees, to raise money to redeem them from the Turks. The Turks would had a large number of Jews and under conditions of slavery, but they could be redeemed. You gave the Turks enough money, and they would let the Jews go. And so the Jews were what the Jews were doing. And so these two placed pressure to help to enlarge the circle of Gentiles and others who were favorable towards the Jews. Also, Menasseh wrote at that time that it may be that God has not left us, which one persecutes us, another receives us civilly and courteously, and if this prince treats us ill, another treats us well. One banishes us out of his country, another invites us in with 1,000 privileges, as the first princes of Italy have done, the most eminent king of Denmark, the mighty Duke of Savoy and Nissa, and And all those republics that bring in Jews, Menasseh said they flourished. They received blessings because of it. Those who help the Jews, despite the Jews being persecuted, are usually blessed, are better off because of it. And also, you should realize Menasseh ben Israel, he was north. He'd come from a background where he didn't know very much, but he taught himself. He read a lot of books, an enormous number of books. He became a rabbi. And he corresponded, and not only Jewish books, he also knew Christian theology and all the general science, what was known, the common knowledge. He was up to date with it. And he wrote letters to all kinds of people, Grotius in the Netherlands, or in the Netherlands or Germany. Grotius was the founder of international law. He corresponded with him. He corresponded with the Queen of Sweden, who was also an intellectual in intellectual circles, and with numerous others. Some other would get a letter from Menasseh, or would write to Menasseh. And Menasseh was quite a celebrity. The painter Rembrandt drew a portrait of Menasseh. Also, other painters also painted his picture. It was good for business. It meant if you had the privilege of doing a likeness of Menasseh, it meant that you were important, that you had been accepted by that person as worthy to illustrate him. So he was a known person. And he corresponded with people in England. And people in England at that time were interested in me admitting the Jews. The Jews had been expelled from England in 1290, and they were still officially not allowed. There were Jews in England, but it was unofficial. And Menasseh corresponded with him. And one of the people he corresponded with was John Sadler. John Sadler was the assistant secretary of Oliver Cromwell. He was also a lawyer, an academic, a member of Parliament, town clerk of London, Hebraean, a Polish millenarian. I think he was someone, you can look him up on Wikipedia, he was someone in his own right. Also wrote the book, The Rights of the Kingdom, 1649, which in effect says that the English are descended from Israelites, and that the British constitutional, British institutions are derived from the Bible. And not only did he write this book, he also in the House of Parliament, he gave a speech about it. And he was corresponded with Menasseh ben Israel, and he was interested in having the Jews received back into England. And so to Oliver Cromwell also was interested in this. And Oliver Cromwell, he was sympathetic to the Jewish cause. Oliver Cromwell, even though he was a dictator and he was a fanatic in his own way, he could be quite liberal. Within the own confines, his own limitations, he was actually religiously tolerant of other religions. He considered himself to have the obligation to protect the Jews. He writes about this, and that the Almighty wanted him to help the Jews. And not only that, he believed that bringing in more Jews to England would help help British commerce. He was interested in improving British trade. And you've seen how the Jews in the Netherlands had helped develop the Netherlands, or good for the Netherlands, so he wanted some of that also to come his way. And so on. Also, he was religiously inclined in that direction. He also believed that the Lost Ten Tribes, the English were descended from the Lost Ten Tribes, the same as John Sadler. And this is now admitted. It was always, in his writings, it was always strongly indicated. But this is now being, in academic circles, admitted this was his trend of thought as well. And you should also note that at that time, amongst the Puritans in England, the idea of the fifth monarchy, the coming of the Messiah was around the corner. And there was a big ferment amongst this. And they were all enthusiastic and anxious about it, and they believed in it. They believed the Messiah was going to come. So did the Jews. The Jews believed that in 1648, based on the Zohar, that the Messiah would appear, and came along 1648, and he wasn't there. But also, this belief of theirs also had affected the Puritans, also interested in it. They also had similar ideas of their own. So those ideas existed that by letting the Jews back into England, somehow or other, we could help bring on the Messianic age. And so Cromwell agreed that Menasseh should come to England and speak to the relevant people, speak before committees and so on, and make his acquaintance and press his cause. Cromwell also paid for his trip to come over, and after that, even he arranged that he should receive a pension for the rest of his life. Menasseh was always hard up for money, relatively speaking, and so this is worth noting. Cromwell genuinely believed in it and wanted to help things along this line, as did numerous other important people in England at that time. There were a lot of big names, important names. Those who were up into the history of that region that time will see them, and this is what there was. Also, we should note that John Sadler was one of them, believed in the Lost End Tribes, believed the English are from Lost End Tribes. He was also very important in bringing Menasseh over. And we should note from read out from Wikipedia, these are the millenarians. Read out a short extract from Wikipedia on this subject. It says many millenarians, so there's people who believed in the end of time, so they bring on the millennium, the rule of the Messiah that was supposed to be just around the corner. And many of them emphasize the chosen rule of England in God's plan. They believe that whether the English were descended from the lost tribes or not, they were chosen. Providence had chosen them. This was often accompanied by the identification of the Jews as true Israel of the Bible. Indeed, they saw the Jews as a superior group, sharing some characteristics with the chosen nation of England. I mean, they must have been superior if they shared some characteristics with the chosen nation of England. It's obvious, okay? Anyway, this belief was rooted in the literal interpretation of the Bible, biblical primacy of the Jews, found in the writings of Thomas Brightman and so on. And he came over. And he went around talking to people, and transpired in the course of deliberations and people, different committees and so on, that there's nothing against the Jews coming back. That the Jews had been expelled in 1290. But the king had not received the ratification of the promulgation had not been carried out. It was as if the king had, on his own initiative, said something, made a ruling, and that was all it was. There's no legal standing. There's nothing, or even if there was a legal standing to it at the time, there was nothing saying that the Jews could not come in any time they wanted to. And that would, and then they realized, Cromwell realized, you should realize that as well as all of this enthusiastic support for the Jews coming back, there's also a lot of opposition. A lot of opposition from all different quarters, anti-Semites or people who had all kinds of considerations. They were afraid that they would, St. Paul's Cathedral would be sold to the Jews and turned into a synagogue. All kinds of rumors were going around, and they didn't want the Jews coming back. And they also said that if the Jews were to come back, they would have to agree to all kinds of things, all kinds of regulations and limitations would be placed upon them. Suddenly Cromwell realized there's nothing against them coming back anyway. They don't need any special ruling to do so. And if we try and make any declaration, any official declaration, they're liable to put on it all kinds of regulations and limitations and so on that will not be welcome. And so we just leave things as they are. So that was how it was. That was how things were left.